I'm Charlotte, and I am a psychotherapist who works with daughters of difficult mothers. So all of that childhood trauma stuff that comes up for people, that's the kind of things that I work with. So I'm from Hertfordshire in the UK, and I'm a ruler, a nurturer, obviously, being in the counselling professions, and an accumulator. And they definitely clash at times. And there's a lot of creative tension there. So I'm looking forward to kind of talking that out with you all today.
So the first question I have for you, and Sandra, we're going to start with you on this one and go around, is when you took the SMA quiz, were you surprised by your results, or did you think, yep, that's just me, that's just me?
So for me, it was a complete surprise that I was a ruler. I thought, being in such a caring profession and everything else, I would naturally come out as a nurturer. I really did think that that was the way that I was heading. But I think, obviously, nurturers kind of mother type figures, and what do mothers do? They rule their little empires, don't they? And I think really for me, that's what came through, this idea that, you know, as well as having that nurturing half of me, there's still the half that kind of counts the pennies, makes sure there's food in the cupboard, keeps building on ideas, keeps helping people growing, and keeps bringing those ideas coming through. So it was a surprise, but when I did kind of look and read through, it did make perfect sense for that kind of matriarch figure for me. So that's been something that I've connected with quite a lot, and it's been really a revelation for me, because it's allowed me to empower myself, and it also balances out a little bit of that nurturer tendency to overgive, because I think that there's a sense in all mothers at some point that you get a little frustrated with your kids, and you're like, I'm sick of tying your shoelaces for you. You need to tie them for yourself, kind of thing. So I think that's where that balance and that tension between the two can fit quite well together.
I want to go back in time a little bit, and Charlotte, we're going to start with you. Think about you as a little ruler. Did it come out? Was it suppressed? Were you called bossy as a kid? Where did that come up? And, you know, did people say things to you about your rulerness as a kid?
This is totally my area, and absolutely. I mean, I was always finished first in class. I was always, what do I do next? How can I do more? I'd be forever kind of finishing early enough to go out and help in the nursery class, because I just, you know, there was always more to do. I would help out in assemblies. I'd like to take centre stage. I often got called bossy, too big for my boots, you know, that kind of thing. And it can get quite negative at times, because I remember hearing things like, you need to be taken down a peg or two, and things like that. And so I think over time what happened was that it kind of chipped away at my confidence a bit. It was like, it's not okay to take up space, it's not okay to do these things. And I think kind of discovering that ruler was my archetype was, like Jess said, almost like permission to just run with it and go with it and say, this is me. These are the things I don't like. These are the things I do. And I quite like leading and being center stage of things. You know, I'm quite good at bringing a vision and delivering that and getting other people involved, whether that was in school play or whether that's in my business now. So absolutely, it's been a very interesting kind of being called that bossy boots, and it all suddenly making sense.
When you guys were kids, did you like the movies about business? Because I remember like the 80s movie Big Business with Bette Midler, or 9 to 5, or She-Devil, you know, movies where women would start a business or they would move to the big city. And it was always so energizing for me, because I lived in a small town, you know, and I really resonated with that. Whereas probably a lot of my friends were watching, dreaming about getting married and watching those movies. I was like, oh my God, I want to be, Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead, where Christina Applegate, put on a suit and pretend, blagged her way into a corporate job at the age of 16. I was just like, oh, that's me. So I didn't ask the other archetypes this question, but I think it's really key for you guys. We talked about you as a little baby boss. Tell me about your corporate life or your jobs, because I think we can blag our way. I think we're really good at interviews. But where does that break down in a corporate setting or working for someone else, where you told, you're too big for your boots here? I was told you just don't like following rules. And, I found all the, stuff around, let's all sign this card for Janet's birthday. I was like, oh, it can be fucked. And so there was just felt like a lot of busy work, and I just did not succeed in corporate life at all. It did not suit me.
So my career started with a newspaper round, much like Sarah. Instead of starting at 14 when I was supposed to, when I was about 13 and a half, I used to help a friend who had just turned 14. So we'd then split the money so that I could do that. And then obviously as I got a bit older, I started to work in a news agents and things like that. And that was okay. And I have to stipulate at this point, I do love my children and we do have a good relationship. But I had twins very unexpectedly, as in I found out when I was 20 weeks gone. I wasn't told before then, and then they arrived 15 weeks later, a little bit early, and they were quite sick. So that kind of stalled my career. And as much as I love them, talking to two-year-olds all day was driving me absolutely bonkers. And so I decided that the best thing to do was to kind of build a little empire while I could. I just took the opportunity to kind of study psychology, start doing this part-time stuff alongside sort of looking after them, so that by the time they were a bit more capable of looking after themselves and I could get a bit more care for them, that I could then sort of really start that clinical training for my counselling. And obviously when you do that, you have to be part of a team. You have to start at the bottom rung of the ladder as a volunteer and all the rest of it. But I didn't stay there for very long. As soon as I qualified, I became the counselling coordinator for the agency I was working for, and then just started rewriting all the rules, the policies, bidding for stuff, trying to build the agency up and make it bigger and all of that kind of stuff. And very quickly it felt like I'd run out of road. There wasn't anywhere else to go really. So I decided that the best thing to do would be to start working for myself, and then to start specializing in an area that was something that I was really passionate about, because I wanted to write a book, I wanted to do a course, I wanted to do all of that stuff. And I'm still kind of early days with my business, and I really feel that, much like everybody else, working for somebody else is just so hard. I don't want to follow their rules. I want to write the rules. I don't want to have to follow a meaningless policy. I want to find meaning in what I do. And the way that I do that is by writing it for myself, making up my own rules. And it kind of makes you sound a bit maverick, but at the same time, if you're building a kingdom, it's got to be one you want to live in. And it's got to be one that you're comfortable with. And it's got to be one where you feel that you can be you. I mean, being a mother is fantastic, but it's not all of who I am. And it's not all of who I ever wanted to be either. And so being able to do these things is so important to me. And in many ways, it does inspire your children to strive for more and to do better. I mean, Mine are now 22 and they're both at university and they both hold down a job whilst they're at university. So, you know, some of that is rubbing off. And I think it's kind of really important that as we think about our little boss children and our little boss teens and our little boss adults, you know, we also remember that we're bringing up little boss children too.
So I want to talk, I want to hear about sabotages, and I've just got this question here for you. And I think we're starting with Jess for this one, is how is your ruler stuff showing up and sabotaging in your business? Because we know that this is a good thing. We know it's great. But if you're not aware of it, or if you let some of those things sabotage, or I think the question is, are we actually fine? And it's our other archetypes that are sabotaging us? That's the question. Because, yeah, you know, and a couple of examples, if you don't have it, and I'm sure you'll get them anyway, of like, you know, do you outgrow things too quickly? Are you committing to things too much? Are you trying to work with the wrong clients and railroading them? You know, are you not pricing enough? Is it, you know, is your business you can do this before SMA if you want. Did you realize your business model didn't work for your personality? So I would love to hear, like, how is this ruler stuff showing up, or is it your other archetypes that are actually ruining it all in the perfect business?
So for me, I think I've got quite a lot of tension between my ruler and my nurturer. I don't think that, I mean, my ruler is fantastic. It gives me a lot of drive. Like Jess, I'm always learning things. You know, I do get dragged into that. I will do something myself just because it's quicker and easier than having to explain to somebody else. And I want that efficiency. I want it to have that elegant simplicity that you have in your head, that when you do it yourself, it just comes into it. I think what's difficult with the nurturing side of things when you add that in is that it can give you a tendency, especially when you're doing a lot anyway, to overgive, to overwork, and to not necessarily put you first. And because you know a lot, because you do all this extra learning, because you do fill in the gaps for yourself and you don't expect other people to do that for you, what can happen is that you get into that brain picking kind of dilemma where people, I mean, Denise's little handout on this has been an absolute revelation for me, because, you know, it was really hard to say no. You know, you kind of know that it's not efficient. It's much better to do things in groups. You know that you have more impact and you have more reach. But at the same time, there's that tug on your heartstrings that says, I really should be helping. And, you know, that's the part of the nurturer and the ruler that's at odds, because the ruler wants to keep building, wants to keep hitting targets. And if you're constantly kind of getting brain picked and giving stuff away for free, it then kind of makes you feel like you're failing. And I've had to really put in a big boundary here around, you know, how much of my time I give for free and how I'm going to do that and how I say no. So that's been a really kind of big thing for me to kind of get my head around. And it's made a huge difference in my business to be able to kind of challenge myself on that. Because what I do know is that the accumulator part of me, and I think it kind of strengthens the ruler part a little bit, is actually having a certain baseline of money actually helps me feel safe and secure. And so if I'm then sabotaging myself by giving away too much, then I can't reinvest in my business and think about good business decisions and all of those other things. So there's definitely been some tension around that, and how to kind of work with both of them so that I give but don't overgive, so I can have that safety to be able to play and explore with these kind of big ideas. Because that's, I think, one of the things about rulers. It's not just that we know what we want, it's that we play with ideas a lot. And the reason that the kind of chit chat around people and events doesn't inspire us is because it doesn't tap into that vision of what we want and where we're going and where we're heading. We're kind of blue sky, big picture people, I think. And you know, it's a real revelation actually just sitting down and talking to some other rulers and thinking, thank goodness I'm not alone. You know, that comparison with Mary Poppins, I've been called Mary Poppins before. And the other thing I get usually with rolled eyes is, you're right, you're right. And it's not necessarily that I'm being kind of snotty or rude about it. It's just that I've been there, I've done it, I've got it. And all of this kind of he said, she said, talking about it, going back and forth, trying to make a decision stuff, it just feels so draining. It's like your energy just completely tanks when you're around those kinds of people. So I do tend to find that when I work with people, because I hired my first virtual assistant towards the end of last year, and actually I needed someone that I could just give stuff to and say, can you do this for me? Because if I sit on your shoulder, I'm going to end up doing it for you. And because that's how I am. And so it was really good to be able to work with somebody who's also got a sense of independence and knows what that they can do. I don't know if anyone else finds that, but that's me for sure.
Here's the problem with this call already is I'm like, I think I need to start a new Instagram account just for the archetypes. And I was like, oh, I need a new home for that. And I've been so disciplined, you know, for a long time in like all roads lead to boot camp. And I think sometimes there is that part of me. I'm so excited about doing the money archetypes because there's so many possibilities, you know, and it's so fun, but it's also part of that sabotage for me of going, oh, I'm not going to just do one, I'll do 8. Or like with my book series, so I've just done the Money Mindset for Natural Health Practitioners book. The writer's one is at the edit. So of course I'm not writing one book, I'm writing a series of books like the 4 Dummies guides. And then each one takes so much longer than I think because I'm like, oh, I'll just like copy and paste and change it. But of course I don't. So instead of being a 20,000 word book, they're like 70,000. They're a proper book size now. And then I realized recently, I was like, oh, I don't have to write a book for everyone straight away. I can start with a blog post. Oh, okay. And then whichever one becomes, you know, more exciting to people, then I'll write the book about it. So it's almost like we need a moment to realize we're allowed to have discernment. And, you know, and it's so hard to pull back exactly, Jess, because we take the action. So as soon as I came up with this idea of like, okay, now I've got the editor, now I've got the person, now I've got the co-writer. Now I'm looking for, okay, who has, for the dance teachers one, who already has dance teachers? Maybe I can co-write books with them. How can I do? And then, so what I realized is that we're an empire of empires. So each one of our empires would be more than a full-time business for somebody else. You know, if someone was a speaker, that's a full-time business for someone. If someone's a coach, that's a full-time business for someone. And so now I'm like, well, I'm going to be a publishing house, and I'm going to be this, and I'm going to be this, and it can be a little bit exhausting. So that's how it sometimes it can burn me out a little bit. And I can forget about the discernment piece and go, hang on, wait. Actually, it would be really smart to start with the blog post. It might actually get me the same result than having to spend, you know, a couple of months writing the book. The first one took like 18 months because it was over COVID. The second one took, you know, like it's probably going to take 5 months. I want to get it down to like a month process, you know, because I'm like, let's churn them out, guys. The other thing that I realized too is that we haven't, you know, spoken about is the gender stuff, you know, of, you know, the devil wears Prada. How dare a woman be such of a boss and so transactional with her employees that there's a whole movie made out of it, when that's just commonplace behavior for men who are praised for that. And there's 2 quotes from that are so funny. When she says, by all means, move at a glacial pace. You know how that thrills me. And I'm like that sometimes when I see I asked for something maybe from Mark, who is a ruler too, and I can see the wheels churning and I'm like, come on, get me the answer right now. And then when she says, bore someone else with the details of your incompetence, it's like, I can't deal with the incompetence. And it's so unsexy. Incompetence is so unsexy. So I realize we don't have much time left. I would love to hear and we can go on for a little bit longer if you want, but I want to respect that time. And I think we're starting with Sandra this time. Is that right? Yep. Just a final thought, what would you say to rulers who are thinking about joining SMA?
For me, if you've ever been told that you're bossy, that you're too big for your boots, this is the place for you, because it's a place where you can build back that confidence that's been chipped away. You can really lean into who you are. And the great thing is that knowing that you want to do something for yourself, knowing that you've got that big vision, that's fantastic. But the thing that I found that was really great for me with SMA was how to put that together into a strategy, because when you've got ideas going here, there, and everywhere, you need discernment. You need to be able to get a plan behind that to make it actionable. And SMA helps you to do that step by step. And I really enjoy kind of just sharing my money archetypes, talking about it, and just being okay with being me.
So, are you a ruler, a connector, or a maverick? Hang on, maybe you're more of a romantic or a celebrity. Take the money personality quiz right now and find out which of the 8 money archetypes you are. And then I'm going to teach you how to profit from your strengths and make money in your business based on your natural personality. Click below and find out more.